Yes, okay. I'm sharing my screens with you. So we are going to talk about the Python interview coding questions, right? In this video.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So I made this small presentation to walk you through like how the interviews would be, especially at Google. So just some quick notes, like which really helps you like to understand like what exactly you have to prepare and how you have to prepare for the interviews. So you are going to give interview for Google, right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So typically, whenever I do take the interviews, so basically there are like two phases. Okay, the one is the bad interview and the second one is a good interview. So what is the difference between this bad interview and good interview is that, so we all know that we have a limited time during the interview, right? So we will not have all the day to interview a person. So we are asked not to ask questions like this one. For example, let's say implement a binary search or a graph class or implement this one, because all of this will take like lots of time for anyone to go through to prepare the code, to write the code and everything, right? Rather, so usually we do ask questions like the open-ended questions. For example, hey, so there is a restaurant in London. Could you please give me your insights on that? So this is not a technical round question, but ideally, ideally speaking, like then the expectation over is there. Over is that whatever I told to you, I asked you about the question. So basically, I'm not going to complete the whole question. So I will tell something partially, and I do expect you to ask me the questions. So for example, I'll say like, hey, there is a restaurant in London, and I would like to have some insights. And then I do expect like you asking me like questions like, is it a big restaurant or a small restaurant? Is it like how many tables are there? So what they serve? So is it like what cuisine they do serve? So and I mean. How the sales would be. For example, if you're running a restaurant, would you prefer to have a big menu or a small menu, and why do you do that? So those kind of insights we do expect from the person who is giving the interview. So basically, which really helps us to understand how the person is thinking, right? So these are called the open-ended questions. No one knows the correct answer for that. For example, let's say how many planes that are flying in the sky right now. So if I ask you a question like this, so what would be your like first? What is the first thing that comes into your mind? Any guesses?
Maybe what kind of planes? What type? Is it private jet or the public planes? I think that would be the first question I'll ask.
Exactly. So what's the expectation over here? So so you do have 45 minutes of interview. I mean, I'll just come back to the same question again. So after 45 minutes, Google never ever asks you a question like, hey, introduce yourself or tell me about yourself. So these kind of questions you will not come across anywhere other than the first round of interview, where they will ask you. I mean, ideally the recruiter will reach out to you. I guess that round is already completed. If in case if that one has not completed, basically it's like a fit-in call. So in those calls, the recruiters or the HR people, they will ask you to like introduce yourself, like what do you do, what are all the projects that you do, that you worked on, so how did you work on challenging environment, those kind of questions. But ideally in the 4 rounds of interview that they are going to schedule, I mean if they schedule, so there will be like 4 rounds of interviews, and each interview it goes for 45 minutes. So in that, so they will ask you about like something like chit chat, like hey, how's your day? That's it, end of the story. And then no questions on introduce yourself. So this is something that you have to remember. But if in case if someone asks you a question like this, you would be like the most luckiest person. So you can spend some time on introducing yourself, but don't take like more than 2 to 3 minutes. That's like kind of a suggestion that I would like to give. So if they ask you open-ended question, for example, like what I asked, how many planes are in the sky, so don't try to answer it quickly, like you don't try to question back it quickly. So you take a pen and paper, you tell them like, okay, I'm just noting the question, and then look at the problem, and then take your 5 minutes of time, and then try to understand like, okay, now what kind of all the questions that I can ask. So for example, like, what kind of a plane is it, a private jet or this one, and then what is the location, I mean which locality the interview is like most interested, for example North America or Canada or Asia or Europe. And then is it a private plane or is it a cargo or is it a military plane? And if in case if they say like a passenger plane, and then you ask like, okay, are you interested in Boeing or like Airbus? And if say like for example Boeing, and you ask like, okay, like which locality, like the morning planes, like that, you have to like a deep dive, and you have to understand like these questions, those questions and all. For example, if it is a Tuesday, the number of passengers who actually fly is like very less compared to the weekends, etc. So those kind of insights you have to put, the basic ones, and no one knows the real answer, like how many planes are really flying right now, right? And so that's how you have to deep dive, and you have all the time. So for example, let's say like some 20 to 40, 30 minutes of time to crack this one. When I appeared for Google, they asked me a question like, there is a dashboard and the people are not using that. That's it, end of the story. So if you don't know, if you're not anticipating these kind of questions, and you can tell like maybe the dashboard is not accurate, and if you give kind of answers like that, so your interview will be like done and there. So they're like, okay, this person is not asking any questions, they will mention it in the feedback. So that's something which is really important. It's not just for the Google, any FANG companies that you appear for. So do remember this one, and they will not tell you like, hey, I'm going to ask you some hypothetical questions. No, it's not like that. They'll just put the question and they're like, they wait. Okay. And when it comes to the coding questions, again, so they will give you a problem, and so you have to understand the problem. For example, if they ask you reverse a string, and then you have to think about like, okay. So it really doesn't matter which language you prefer to use. I mean, but you can tell them like, hey, I'm comfortable with Python, so I'm going to use the Python. Or if you're comfortable in the Java, you can do it in the Java. So it really doesn't matter. So all you have to do is that you have to open the Google Docs, and you have to write the program over there. So basically you will not get any help from the compilers to find the errors and all. So you have to open a Google Doc like this. I mean, of course they will share that with you, and then here you have to write like, so I mean what I suggest, so use this at the rate of code code block. It's not coming. Okay, fine. So I mean you have to write like for I in range, so like this, 1,20. So you have to write like this. Okay, so now writing a code like this is always like challenging, right? I mean, if you're writing in a compiler, it is very easy to find all the syntax errors. So once after, if in case if you understand the problem end to end, and then if you start writing the code in the Google Docs, do ensure that it's not the code that they're like very much interested. It's basically they're very much interested on how you are actually trying to solve the problem. So for example, if I'm writing a code, for example, let's say like a is equal to a plus 1, and if I write it on my own language, so just assume that the 20 or 25 minutes, the interviewer, he will be like just looking at your screen, and if in case if you're not talking, so then in the feedback again he or she, they will mention like, oh, this person is not like very talkative. So whatever actually you are writing on the Google Docs, the code and all, so basically whatever you're thinking, you speak it out. You say like, hey man, you know what, I'm thinking like, this is something that I can use, and I'm not sure, if you're not sure, I'm not sure, okay, so but I'm just trying. And he's like, okay. And if in case, for example, let's say if they ask you something which you don't know, for example, let's say if they ask you to find a prime number, and if in case if you don't know what is a prime number, and if in case, if you did not ask you the questions back, and if you say like, okay, let me try, and if you don't understand how to do that one, of course you can't do that one, right? So rather, if you don't know what is a Fibonacci series or a prime number, what I strongly recommend you, all these Google interviews, they are like very googly. So it is like you're talking to a friend. That is how the interview should go. Again, I mean, if in case if you're going to on-site interview, and if you're wearing a nice suit, and if you go to the office, there are chances that they will reject you then and there. It's because, they expect the people to come and appear for the interviews, like, like in the casuals, like whatever the casuals, and like jeans, you can wear shorts, whatever it is. So they always look at whether the person can fit with the Google culture or not. So right now I'm working at Google, I can go to the office by wearing the shorts. So that is how the culture over here. I'm just giving you the insights, whatever I did not know during my interview time. So always try to understand what's the question that they asked you. So you will have ample amount of time. Even if you're not able to complete the code, it's totally fine. All they wanted to understand is that, are you able to are you able to understand, are you able to solve the question? As long as you are doing some efforts to solve the question and all, it is like very good. Even though I have experience in Python, sometimes whenever I appear for an interview, they do ask some questions which sometimes it will take like lots of time for me. I mean, in one of my interviews, latest interviews, so I mean, I appeared for an interview, to be honest with you, and then they asked me calculate the average, because I was like I was like little nervous. I forgot how to calculate the average. I just have to use the mean, right? I forgot it, and it was a SQL interview. And the person, he was like, "Hey, you have to use the average." I was like, "I know how to use the average, but I'm not getting that inbuilt formula, which is like dot mean." I was like that, and after like some struggle, he said like you have to use dot mean. I was like, ah man, this is something that I use on my daily regular day to day activities, but I still forgot. I mean, that kind of pressure, nervous you may feel if you're taking the pressure. Okay, so
Yeah.
going back to this one. See, basically, whatever I went through, I'm trying to share that with you. So I mean, if in case if it helps, I can meet you at Google once you join at Google, and we can say hey hi to
Yeah.
each other, right?
Yeah. I'm
Definitely.
looking forward to that.
Yeah, definitely. I trained many people, and I helped many people to get into Google. It's not just Google. I help people to get into like Apple, Microsoft, and also that's the reason I know, like, all the questions that what they ask and all. So when you asked about these Python questions and all, what are the curriculum that I shared with you? Basically, these are the questions which we usually ask during the interviews. Okay, we will ask a
So,
simple
so, so,
question.
sorry. So it doesn't matter. Are you saying it doesn't matter the department?
No, it really doesn't matter.
Ah, okay.
So I mean, I will tell you. So I mean, if they schedule 4 rounds of interview, did they schedule any interview for you as of now?
Yes, yes, it has been scheduled. Should I show you something? Should I
Yeah,
share my
sure,
screen for
sure,
just
sure.
1 minute? Okay. So